Okay, so here we go. Oh, it's transcribing me as well. Okay. And then I'm going to share my screen so you can see my presentation here. All right. Hopefully everybody should be able to see my screen at this point. It's now not on display there for some reason, but maybe I can click here. Give me 1 second, guys.
We can see it.
Yes, I'm trying to show the chat to the people that are in the room with me so that we could see whoever comments in the chat. That'll work, right? Okay. All right, here we go. So today we're going to go over some notices that we received from our superintendent over the past week, and we will stop periodically to see if anyone has any questions. But before we get to that, just want to go over some meeting norms. I know most of us are used to the virtual meeting setting, but just to go over some norms with you all, we ask that everybody have their microphones muted and their cameras off, just for the sake of the presentation, right? We don't want any distractors. And so if at any point you do have a question or you're called on to speak, then we ask that you kindly turn your camera on if you're capable, because some are not, depending on the device that they're using, and then to turn on your microphone and just speak your question out loud to us, or you may type your questions into the chat box in the bottom right-hand corner. You can also react to anything that is said throughout the presentation. There's some little reaction icons at the very top. There's like a clapping hand, some hearts, thumbs down, I believe. So just feel free to use those, and it gives us feedback as we move throughout the presentation. Okay, so we'll get started here. All right, so Monday, the 23rd is our first day of school. Please be reminded that the first bell rings at 8:25 in the morning. So 8:30 is the start of our class, but the first bell rings at 8:25. This signals to all of our students that they should be moving into their classrooms at that time. I know that a lot of times parents would like to drop off their students early, and we understand that. So we put some times here for you to be aware of. Hang on 1 second here. Yep. So we put in here that we wanted to let you guys know that the grounds will be open. That is, the gates to the campus will be open at 6 a.m. But the actual building will open for students at 7:30 a.m. And the reason for that is because at 6 a.m. it is just our plant operator here on campus, and they're, checking on things like electricity and all of the great things that we need to make sure that our campus is running smoothly. And so we can't ensure supervision at 6 a.m. But if you feel comfortable dropping off your child, they are more than welcome. Sometimes we've seen them here that early, sitting in front of the front doors and under the pavilion area to protect them from weather if it should rain. But the building opens at 7:30 a.m. That's approximately 1 hour before the school day begins. Sometimes you will see that our administrative assistant, Ms. Morales, might get here a little earlier than 7:30, but we can't guarantee that because her duty doesn't start until then. So when we do open the building, students are asked to report immediately into the cafeteria area. And throughout the school year, they can go to the cafeteria area and other areas as well. But we're asking that on the first day of school, students go straight to the cafeteria, because we will actually be giving out any schedules that have changed. So we're not going to reprint every single schedule in the building, but if we had to make a last minute change because we noticed something was wrong, then your child can come in and pick up that new schedule. You can also see these changes being made live in Power School or HISD Connect for the parents. So please make sure you check on that. And reminder, tomorrow we have scheduled pickup for our freshman students. Okay. Okay, just 1 second here. Give me 1 second to get this back up and running. All right, thank you, Mr. Kaspari. So we will go on to our dress code policy. We put these images up here because these are primarily the areas that we struggle the most with as it relates to dress code violations. And so I just wanted to be sure that we are relaying the information that we want parents to be aware of, right? So most of the time, our violations come from students wearing sandals with no backings on them. And so, yes, Crocs are permissible, but we ask that you flip those bad boys into sport mode so that that front little piece there goes on the back of the ankle. And the reason we ask for this is because should there be a fire drill or some kind of safety issue where we have to get everybody out of the building quickly, there's no risk of slipping out of those and tripping, right? So please make sure that you send your child to school every day in proper shoes with backings on the back. And then, of course, mid-drifts have always been a hot topic here at Eastwood Academy. So please make sure, ladies and gentlemen, if you are wearing a shorter blouse than usual, that you have skin covered. And our schedule changes. So you will notice that you can see your child's schedule in Power School, or your child may have come already this week to pick up their schedules. And you know, we're humans and we may have errors. So you might see duplicate classes. You may see, oh, my child has been enrolled in a class that they've already taken, or they were enrolled in the wrong class because we requested something else. And so if that has happened, we need you not to bombard Ms. Dixie Morales with emails and text messages and Teams messages. We ask that you kindly submit the schedule request form. And this link was included in the Boxer bulletin we sent for back to school. And I believe I have posted it to our students Teams group as well. And I will do that again. It's also located on our school's website. Mr. Kaspari is going to drop that link, or Ms. Morales will drop the link into this chat box here so that you have access to it. Please also note that you know, bear with us, be patient, because they're in the process of correcting schedules currently, looking through every single one of the 410 schedules we've created and fine-tooth combing them right now. So if you submit a schedule change and it doesn't happen the same day, the next day, or even the day after that, rest assured we're going to get to it. And just be patient with us. We have until the 15th day of school to make any schedule changes. This is an HISD policy. We cannot make any schedule changes after the 15th day of school. This just ensures that our students are actively learning in their classes and there's very little disruption to the learning environment. So please keep that in mind. And also know that our priority is making sure that our students have the classes that they need to graduate. So we will prioritize in that order, making sure that we make any changes related to wrong classes or missing classes or classes that are required for graduation. So I will pause right there and see if there are any questions. Mr. Kaspari will let me know if there are any in the chat box. or you can feel free to turn on your your microphone, and ask us whatever might be pressing on your mind as it relates to what we've already covered. And then I will move on to our COVID policies and protocols. Okay. There are no questions. We will continue. All right.
Question just came in.
All right.
Will there be after-school clubs this year?
Yes, so we will have after-school tutorials, and we are allowed to do after-school clubs as long as we are able to social distance in the room that you are meeting in, and of course, masks are required. Mm-hmm.
If we submitted a schedule change request and it got changed correctly, should we do another schedule change?
Yes, please. If it got changed, but it didn't get changed correctly, so there could be various reasons why. And so if you submit another one and for whatever reason we're not able to accommodate the change, like maybe the class is too full, or maybe it just doesn't fit in the schedule as it's written, then one of our administrators will reach out to you personally to let you know. But please submit the second schedule request and make sure that you explain in there that this is your second request, and kind of explain the situation so we know what's going on. Did I get everything that's there so far? Okay, there will be 2 other moments to ask questions too. So if we move on and there's another one that pops up, we can get it. All right, so mask mandate. I know that there's a lot of controversy going back and forth out there about mask mandates, but as it stands right now with HISD, masks will be required beginning August 23rd here on campus with our students and our staff members. It's required at all HISD schools, facilities, and buildings, regardless of whether you're vaccinated or not. So please make sure that you send your child to school wearing a properly fitted face mask, covering both the nose and the mouth. We highly encourage that they be kept on when we're outdoors and you're in close proximity to others. However, we understand that outdoors, when you're away from others, it's a good time to kind of take that mask break to get some breath, some fresh air, and breathers there. Same thing applies to visitors. Any visitors that come on campus here at Eastwood, if they do not have a mask, we will happily provide one for you. Some additional language around the mask mandate here. There are some medical exemptions for students that have the appropriate documentation from their medical provider. If this applies to your child, please make sure you get that documentation to our school nurse. Nurse Campos is our nurse this school year, and she is on the call. So you can get with her and she can go over with you the proper documentation that's required for this exemption. And then just wanted to share with you guys the employee non-compliance protocols we have in place. So, but this is not a problem here at Eastwood Academy. All week long, we have been doing professional development with our teachers, and they have been nothing but compliant as it relates to wearing face masks. So this should not be a problem at all. Please know that if there are protocols in place, if a student is non-compliant with the face mask covering, again, we didn't see a problem with this when we had face-to-face instruction back this past school year. So we don't anticipate any problems here on campus this school year. But should there be someone who refuses to wear one, we will contact the parent. We are asked to remove them from the area with other students, and we have a designated place on campus to hold the student until the parent can intervene for us and hopefully get them to place their face mask on. And if not, they will be sent home and directed to stay home, and this counts as an unexcused absence. These students will also be offered temporary online learning, which we will get to later. There is a maximum 20 days per school year for temporary online learning in the event of any COVID concerns. But again, we'll get to that in just a second. Physical distancing. So social distancing is no longer required by HISD or the CDC. We do obviously want to try to maintain at least 3 feet of social distancing wherever it is possible. However, knowing that we will have 410 students here on campus starting August 23rd, it's just physically not possible in every class period across the campus. So there may be instances where your child might be a little less than 3 feet within other students, and hence the dire importance of wearing a face mask when they're in the classrooms and walking through the hallways, and of course being in the cafeteria area. We will implement assigned seating this school year. So every classroom that your child walks into, there will be an assigned seat. The reasoning behind this is for contact tracing. So if we know that your child sits in a certain area and your child tests positive for COVID, it's easy to contact trace who they were in close proximity with, should we need to alert their parents about possible exposure. This kind of eliminates, well, they were sitting with Johnny yesterday, but, 2 days ago they were sitting next to so-and-so, right? It just kind of limits the amount of contact tracing we have to do to keep track of that. Eating and drinking. So we will have our regular breakfast time in the morning. We will have our regular lunch time in the afternoons. And by assigned seating here at Eastwood Academy, what that means is we will be placing red do not sit markers every other chair in the cafeteria so that we can try to maintain that 3 feet of distance between the students. It does not mean that your child will have a specific seat assigned to them every school day. It just means we will have designated seating and non-seating areas within the room. Our water fountains will be on. They will be dispensing water. However, students are forbidden from drinking from the fountain. We ask that you send your child with a refillable water bottle should they need water throughout the day, so that they can refill that at the water fountains. All of our freshmen at Boxer Camp were given an Eastwood Academy refillable plastic water bottle, so hopefully you send your child with those. And then, of course, we already went over the face masks and coverings. I can't emphasize enough that when we're in the cafeteria, there will be 410 students at the lunch period, right? And the cafeteria is not the only place we can eat, so we don't expect 410 students in one cafeteria, but because they will be in close proximity to one another, we ask that your child keep their face mask on the entire time unless they are actively eating or drinking, right? And so what that means is, you can remove the mask while you're eating your food, but once you're finished eating, that you put it back on and continue your conversations with your friends and whatnot. But we just don't want to see, food in front of you, but you're not actually eating and you have the mask on, right? So please make sure we try to adhere to that whenever possible. And then, of course, physical movement. We want to discourage moving too many places throughout the cafeteria. If your child would like to get moving, and we encourage that, our outdoor area, the courtyard will be open, as well as the field area for play and running around and getting that energy out. Okay, attendance and grades. Grades matter, attendance matters, but HISD has articulated that perfect attendance will not be a recognized category this school year. It's not going to be an award category because we know that there may be some instances that are beyond our control that cause a student to have to be absent throughout the year, and that should not count against them. There are no plans for grade exemptions whatsoever. So I know that last year, a lot of our students struggled with turning in assignments on time, getting their work done when they were doing the virtual work at home. So there are no exemptions for their grades. Every grade matters, every assignment matters, and every school day matters. So please just make sure you continue to articulate that to your children, that it is important for them to come to school every day and stay on top of their assignments. Okay, here's some language around, what do we do when someone is confirmed positive or presumed positive? What does it mean to be exposed to COVID-19? And so there obviously are some different languages around or protocols around if you're fully vaccinated versus not fully vaccinated. And so we want to make sure we articulate that there are different procedures for that. So if you are fully vaccinated and you end up testing positive for COVID-19, there still is a quarantine period, right? And this is true for anyone, vaccinated or not vaccinated. And there is a quarantine time of 10 days from the onset of symptoms or from the date that the test was taken if there are no symptoms, okay? Because it is possible to test positive for COVID-19 and not have any symptoms whatsoever. You are presumed positive if you have one or more of the COVID symptoms, and so that does warrant a quarantine or isolation time, and it's 10 days from the onset of symptoms. It is very important that you communicate symptoms to our school nurse immediately so that she can give you the proper guidelines for the return to school. And then, of course, if you were fully vaccinated and presumed positive, you were only presumed positive if you were displaying any of the symptoms as well. So over here under exposure, this is where it gets a little bit different for each of the different categories, right? So exposure is defined as having been closer than 6 feet for 15 cumulative minutes or more within the day. And exposure means in close contact with a person who has tested positive for COVID-19 or a presumed positive case. Again, the quarantine time is 10 days from the last day of exposure. You could qualify for an early return to school as long as the qualifications are met. These are the qualifications here. So you would have to have no symptoms and have a negative COVID-19 test that's taken 5 days from the last date of exposure. So this caused some confusion last school year. Let me give you the example of, let's say that I'm in a classroom and I have been notified that my best friend had COVID-19, she tested positive, and then I start panicking because I was within 6 feet for 15 minutes or more with my best friend. And so my mom takes me home the same day, takes me to get a COVID test. I turn up negative. Can I come back to school the next day? The answer is no, because the last day of exposure was that school day. So you have to wait 5 days from that last day of exposure before you even take your test, because it could be a false negative at that point. So please make sure you are abiding by that 5-day rule. I know as a parent, I've dealt with this with my own children. We immediately want to know, do they have it or not? But we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot, because if you test that day and you get a negative, you'll breathe a sigh of relief, but it is very possible that the child could end up positive 4 to 5 days from that point. So please make sure you just wait that 5 days before testing. So down here for the fully vaccinated individuals, you will notice that there is no quarantine if you're exposed and have no symptoms, right? So I am a fully vaccinated individual. If I came into close contact or I was exposed to a positive person who tests positive for COVID-19, but I have no symptoms whatsoever, I do not need to quarantine. Now, if I came in contact with that the person who tested positive for COVID-19 and I developed a cough or a sore throat, then yes, I would need to. Okay, and you don't need to remember all of this. We will, when you notify us that, oh, my child has XYZ symptom, we will immediately give you guidance, ask you the proper questions, and then let you know what days you need to, what steps you need to take thereafter. Okay, I promise you we're getting to the question section in just a few minutes. I just want to get through all of these. So here at Eastwood and on every HISD campus, we are required to have our SHIP, which is our student health isolation pod. So the SHIP is designated for any student that has either been identified as a positive case or within the school day developed some kind of symptoms that are associated with COVID-19. We will place the student into the isolation area to get them away from staff members and the other students, and we will immediately call the parent or the caregiver at the time to give further instructions and have the child taken home. Okay, and then again, the quarantine is 10 days from the onset of symptoms or the day that the child was exposed. Students will not be counted absent in these situations this school year. as long as they meet the criteria, which we will go over in just a bit. And also if they participate in the 2 to 4 hours of temporary online learning. Okay. With contact tracing, our nurse will guide this school year and figure out whether or not there are people, secondary and tertiary people that may need to be quarantined as a result of direct exposure. Okay. And then, of course, we will keep you informed every step of the way. You will receive notifications on your next steps. And we will report this into the HISD dashboard. Okay. All right. I will pause here. I know we have some questions coming up in the chat. Yep. So TEA, Texas Education Agency, has provided the 20-day cap for COVID-19. So what will happen, and that's at this point, right? So it may change as we progress and our state learns more about what we should be doing. And so if we reach the 20-day cap, what will happen is they will be counted as excused absences because your child is sick, and whenever a child is sick, it is an excused absence. However, when you get to a certain point, and there's a 90% rule, right? So if a child is not in the classroom within that 90%, then they could potentially lose credit for the course. And so unexcused absences are the absences that really affect our students at the high school level. So we want to make sure that we are in close contact with one another, or close communication, I should say, with one another as it relates to why your child is absent, especially if it's for an illness and it goes beyond the 20 minutes. Okay. Why do kids need to take a test that's negative to come back if exposed? But if the student is confirmed or presumed, they don't need a negative test to return, just improvement. Couldn't they still be contagious with improvement? Yes, I agree with you. We are just articulating to you guys the HISD guidelines, right? And so this is what we were given as a guidebook for when a child is allowed to return back to campus based upon our CDC guidelines that were given to us as well. Is there going to be off-campus lunch for juniors and seniors this school year? So yes, we are anticipating that. However, I need to get clarification from the district now that these new guidelines have come out, because that puts our students off campus into another environment that we can't control, right? And so I highly doubt that we'll be able to do that within the fall semester. So it may need to be something that we postpone until the spring semester if we get the clearance from upper level administration. Okay, and then I'm going to read one more, and then I'm going to call on Ms. Vigil in just a second. So the last one I have in the chat right now says, I will have to leave the meeting. Oh, yes, I will send a link, Ms. Green. I'm gonna, and then it will go onto our YouTube channel, but that will happen tomorrow morning as I need to get to my daughter's birthday dinner. So I'll do that first thing in the morning. Ms. Vigil, did you want to type your chat, or do you want to turn your microphone on to ask your question?
I turned the microphone on because I misplaced how to do the typing.
Oh, you're okay.
Okay,
I prefer the voice anyway.
I'm Joseph Thompson's grandmother, and I'm his caregiver. My question is, you talked about the masking, the social distancing. What about the sanitation? Are there going to be, you're going to have that available throughout the school?
Yeah, so I didn't put those slides on here, but I can, if you guys have the Ready, Set, Go, the most updated one that was sent by the superintendent, if you could drop that in the chat. It's like a PDF. If you search your email for superintendent, it'll come out. But so yes, all the sanitation is still taking place. We have all of the hand sanitizer stations throughout the building. They're in every single classroom, every single night. Our custodial staff goes around the building and does the electrostatic disinfectant of the air and the surfaces. They're wiping down the surface areas every 45 minutes by hand, like every handrail, every doorknob, restroom, everything. And then, of course, whenever students enter the classroom, we have instructed our teachers to either stand at the door with the antibacterial wipes or to have them on a stool in front of the door. Students will be instructed to take those antibacterial wipes, wipe down their seating area at each class period. So it's constantly being cleaned in and out of the classrooms.
Thank you.
Of course. And HISD does also have air filtration upgrades that they've implemented into every campus. So I don't know the ins and outs of HVAC, but this is what we were told as well. So there are definitely measures being taken to make sure that even the air is sanitized as well. Are there any other questions in the chat, or anyone want to turn on the microphone? I'm going to go to temporary online learning next. Okay. So temporary online learning this year is very different from last school year. So we will go over the different criteria that must be met in order to qualify for temporary online learning. So both of the conditions that are stated in the blue box will have to be met in order to qualify. So if the student is unable to attend school because of a temporary medical condition, whether it be related to COVID-19 or otherwise, and then of course the total remote conferencing instruction cannot exceed more than 20 instructional days per school year for the entirety of the school year. So once you meet those two conditions, then you go down to the gray part. One of these conditions must be met. The student's temporary medical condition must be documented by a licensed U.S. physician, and the documentation must include a statement from the physician that the student is to remain confined to the home or a hospital, right? So let's say that you met the conditions above because your child is tested positive, then that positive test must have come from, you know, the doctor or from or displaying the symptoms according to the second bullet here, right? Student has a positive COVID test or is displaying the symptoms. And then thirdly, the student has been identified as having been in close contact with COVID. So that would be an incident where we have said to you, or maybe outside of the school, your child was exposed to someone who tested positive. So obviously these all allude to the idea of either having COVID-19 or being exposed to COVID-19 or displaying symptoms of COVID-19, right? But it could also include other conditions that are medical conditions documented by a physician, okay? So if you meet these criteria, again, both in the blue and only one in the gray box, then you would qualify. And so again, the eligibility is up to 20 days of temporary online learning. And then keep in mind that delivery of this instruction is not by an Eastwood Academy teacher. These are synchronous lessons that are delivered by a certified teacher in the district for 4 hours per day. They will follow the scope and sequence, but it was only offered for the 4 core content areas: math, science, social studies, and English. So they will be assigned a new teacher, but they will not be withdrawn from Eastwood. They will still be an Eastwood Academy student, but for the temporary time that they have to be quarantined or at home for whatever reason, they will be enrolled in an online virtual lesson, and you will get the links for those meetings. You'll get all the instructions via email. So all of our students have devices, so this second part is really meant for elementary and middle school students. If your child needed a hotspot because you don't have Wi-Fi at home or internet service at home, then a hotspot will be given to that child as well. So this is kind of what the process looks like. A parent must request enrollment into the temporary online learning. So the parent can either submit the form online on their own, and we will have all these links ready for you guys to go on the first day of school. So you, as a parent, you go online, you submit this request. If you don't have access to the internet, or you are not technologically savvy, that's okay. You just give us a call and we will submit the documentation or the request on your behalf. Next, what happens is the school nurse or myself or one of the administrators will confirm that request. We will look at all of the documentation, their ID number, make sure everything is correct in the system so that you get the information you need in order to log on for those classes. And then what will happen from that request is the district, at the district level, they will enroll your child in the courses, and you will automatically, instantaneously get an email with all the links and everything that you need to be able to access the temporary online learning course. Your child will also be enrolled in the hub course, because this is where they will have access to the learning materials, like the lessons for the day, the assignments for the day, and where they will submit their assignments for the day for that particular course, as well as links within that hub. Okay, and so the student will have to participate in each of those classes throughout the day for 4 hours. If they do that, then these online teachers will submit in a dashboard that we can see as a school that they have reported that day, and your child's attendance will get corrected from absent to present by the end of that school day. This is a streamlined process. It's a little different from last year. Last year, you know, it was on our teachers to go and correct the attendance and to do various things throughout the year that kind of sometimes got lost with time and all of that great stuff. But what will happen this year is that in the online platform, these teachers are reporting the attendance daily. I think their time limit is up to 1:30 in the afternoon. And then by 3 o'clock, you'll see that us at Eastwood have made the correction in Power School. So if you don't see it right away, that's why. There's like a system, right? We'll go in every single day, our attendance clerk, and make sure that we check on whether that student was marked absent or present by the online teacher. The same thing is true for grades. So if your child is participating in the temporary online learning program, every Friday, the grades from that online teacher are submitted into the dashboard, and then your child's Eastwood teacher of record in those 4 areas, the math, science, social studies, English, will go in, pull those grades, and put them into the grade book for your child. So I guess the big question there would be, well, are they getting credit for the things that their actual Eastwood teacher is teaching that week? And the answer is no, because it's essentially like removing your child from Eastwood curriculum and then placing them into this online learning platform with the district level teachers, if that makes sense. So this is just a recap of kind of what you need to know about temporary online learning. It has to go through the request process. It doesn't happen automatically. The parent has to submit the request, or the school can do it if the parent calls us and asks us to do it, right? And then it's only the core content. So your child will only be getting the instruction in math, science, social studies, and English. It's for a 20-day maximum. They must engage for 4 hours a day in order to get counted present. The grades will be received by the school every Friday, and then the teachers will enter those grades, and then attendance corrections will be made daily. So I want to try to cover some of the questions that I know came up for me as a principal. And one of the big ones was, well, what about all the other classes, right? Like we have AP Computer Science, we have engineering and cybersecurity and art and Spanish and all this stuff. The answer is the unfortunate answer is that there's no way that the district can provide a teacher for every single different course that's offered in the district. And so your child will not have access to instruction for those particular classes. And what will happen is they could potentially lose credit because of the absences. Remember the 90% rule. A child has to be present to a course for 90% of the time that course is offered in order to receive credit for it. So what will happen in those instances is that it will go to the attendance committee for an appeal, and then we will discuss kind of why the child was absent at those points, and then make decisions to grant the credit in those situations. But it has to go through the formal attendance committee appeal process. So know that we understand here at Eastwood, and our committee is very understanding of situations that would prevent a child from being on campus, especially as it relates to COVID-19 during this time. Additionally, our teachers are committed to posting assignments on the hub so that students don't fall behind. So if your child is logging on to the TDS or the temporary online learning curriculum videos, but they're curious about, oh no, I have to study for Miss Aloha's AP statistics and I'm losing that instruction because this math is not aligned to the level of math I was taking at Eastwood. Then of course they could always check their class hub assignments and stay up to date with what our teachers are doing here at Eastwood while they are in quarantine. Okay, I want to address some of the questions here. This one here? Okay.
As well.
Okie doke. It's taken a while to load.
Yeah.
Okay, so if a child is quarantining and doing the online learning, but they want to keep up in their own classes, they can ask for the teachers to send the materials. Absolutely, and our teachers would definitely appreciate that because our teachers don't want your child to get behind on their curriculum. If anything, they really, really, really want to keep your child in the loop so that they stay ahead, right? So if they are on quarantine, Ms. Gonzalez, they will not have classes offered for their electives just during the quarantine time. So they will, when they report online, they're only doing math, science, social studies, and English, and that is it. But again, I can't emphasize enough, your child must engage for the 4 hours online in order to get counted present. We don't want to put ourselves in another situation where, last year was very tough and kids, slept through the online learning sometimes or didn't get in on time and all that stuff. And we could control some of those things by calling our kids into the meetings or making sure that they were there. But because it's not hosted by us, we don't have that ability to bend over backwards and call your child into a meeting, right? So you just want to make sure that they are very responsible with this time. It's a great way to still get counted present for the day and not lose credit in those core areas that are required for graduation. Okay, will the teachers provide one-on-one with students or in small groups? Are you referring to in the temporary online setting? If you're referring to the temporary online setting, I can't speak to the details of how they will be doing that. But in our classrooms, yes, so we will have many opportunities where our teachers will be working one-on-one with a child or in small groups. Again, it's very structured, right? So it's not going to look like it would look in a normal non-COVID year. Our students will be assigned particular groups, and the idea is that they remain in those groups for consistency of contact tracing. But we will have tutorials. Our teachers are really planning the year out to pay attention to student data and staying on top of where our children are at any given time and catering or tailoring our tutorials to match your students' individual needs as it relates to the different standards for that course. So there will be instances where it is a one-on-one scenario. There will be instances where it's, maybe 3 to 1. And sometimes it'll be, you'll have 15 kids that show up for tutorials, but each of those individual students will receive their own individual instruction. Any other questions? This is my last slide. So if you'll have any questions about anything we've talked about this evening, I'll be happy to answer those as well. Okay, I just want to mention about any other absences that are not COVID related. Just please, please, please make sure that if your child is absent for whatever reason, a doctor appointment, dentist appointment, whatever the reason may be, you can give us a doctor's excuse note, handwritten note from the parent. But we really need those within 5 days of the student's return so that we can properly code them in the system. You all know that attendance really matters for schools because this is where our schools get our funding for the next school year. And just to kind of put it into perspective, Eastwood is in a very unfavorable position currently because we had so many absences last year, and we had some students left the district altogether in favor of online learning, or some students left to their zone school for whatever reasons. What that translated to is a drop in enrollment, and that really hurts the campus because then we can't, it's just less funding that we have to provide our instructional supports here on campus. So please, please, please make sure whenever possible you're sending your child to school. Don't send them to a sick though, right? But just communicate with us. There is no problem we can't get through together, but I can't work through something that I'm unaware of. So please just keep us in the loop by any means necessary. Most of you all have my cell phone number, my email, we have Remind. So just keep us in the loop. And that's my commitment to you all, to keep open lines of communication and transparency. That has always been our strength here at Eastwood, and we plan to continue that into this coming school year. Okay, I will pause for just one brief moment. I'm going to run our participant list, so in case we ever need to code this meeting for whatever reason. But this is the conclusion of our meeting, so if no one has any other questions, again, we will download the recording and we will upload it to our YouTube channel should you need to revisit it at any point, or if you need to refer parents who were not here today. Thank you all and have a good evening. We will see you all bright and bushy-tailed on Monday. Thank you all.
Thank you.